Here we go. It's Friday, 6:05 a.m. I'm live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. You guys can see me there. We've got so much to cover. And yes, I watched the entire Tucker Carlson and Putin interview. We've got clips from there, from that interview that I'm going to be sharing with you this morning. As always, you can text me at 309-451-9299. My question to you, uh, did you watch the Tucker Carlson interview with Putin? Did you watch it? Let me know in the comments section or on the text line. And we're going to get to a few stories first before I cover the interview with Tucker Carlson and Vladimir Putin. One story I want to get to today in the 6 o'clock hour, this trans daycare sex worker or sex, he's a worker and he sexually abuses a baby. Okay, but the story gets worse. And this is heavy lifting, okay? So buckle in. It's a little bit heavy lifting, but we've got to talk about it because this daycare worker who sexually abused this baby gets zero jail time after taking a plea deal. And it's absolutely incredible. I don't know how he managed to uh, avoid jail time, but we're going to chat about it. A Democrat official has said the quiet part out loud. She wants illegals given priority over veterans. Yes, this is this is an actual story where she comes out and says it. She says that illegals should be given priority over veterans in this country. She just came out and said it. And a little bit later, I want to get to this superintendent, and he's on tape squirming. This mother exposes the sexually inappropriate assignments that were given to her middle schooler and given to middle schoolers. And she went really kind of not undercover, but she was a mother. And what she was doing, she had a small little camera and she was taping them without their knowledge, and you can see the superintendent really squirm when once she presents what her child is being taught in middle school. So we're going to get to all that, a little bit heavy lifting in the 6 o'clock hour. Don't worry, we'll cleanse the palate with some John Kennedy. He gets out there and destroys, eviscerates, really, uh, Janet Yellen, who has fallen asleep on the money printing button. And John Kennedy, he blasts Bidenomics, and he says that defending Bidenomics is like defending a fungal infection. So, I mean, he just does it so poetically. He takes down these people in a very poetic, beautiful way. So we're going to talk about John Kennedy in the 7 o'clock hour. But first, let's get to this story. Like I said, heavy lifting. This is going to be a tough story, but I don't shy away from the tough stories, and this one's important because you need to know that this guy got zero jail time after taking a plea deal. So, child abuse is one of the worst crimes someone can commit. We understand this. But the only crime that's worse than child abuse is child sexual abuse. But for some reason, a trans pedophile in Kentucky got no jail, and he pleaded guilty to sexually abusing a baby. He got no jail time, and he pleaded guilty to sexually abusing a baby. A baby, yes. According to the Post Millennium, this is a Kentucky trans identified biological male who's been charged with sexually abusing a baby with no forced jail time, with no jail time after reaching a plea agreement with prosecutors. Maria Mark Childers is his name, the transgender daycare worker in Kentucky, and he's been charged, or had been charged with first degree sexual abuse of a victim under the age of 12 and 3 counts of first degree child abuse of a child under 12. Okay, so in January of this year, January 29th, this Maria slash Mark, he goes by Maria, but his real name's Mark, right? And he's a man masquerading as a woman. He struck an agreement with the prosecutors, which included entering in a guilty plea in exchange for his charge of first-degree sexual abuse of a victim under 12 to be amended to sexual misconduct, which is a Class A misdemeanor. The remaining abuse charges were dropped. What? Childers, he was arrested in February of 2023 after the Department of Community-Based Services, so it's kinda like DCFS a little bit, but it's DCBS. They received an anonymous tip that had accused this Mark guy of inappropriately touching a baby while changing the baby's diaper, and also made inappropriate comments to the infant during the act. The abuse occurred in November of 2022 at the Explore Learning Academy. This is a daycare. Now, I get it's a lot easier to do a plea deal with the defendant, but I think we should not be cutting deals with people who have committed some of the worst crimes known to man. Okay, I mean, yeah, shoplifting, sure, let's cut a deal. Um, I mean, but this is one of the worst crimes known to man. So here we go. This is the disturbing part. Stay tuned. We're almost done. This is heavy lifting. Heavy lifting. Per witness testimony, Mark, the guy, was asked to help a colleague change the infant's diaper. Okay. And a colleague noticed that Mark was cleansing the infant's genitals, and she averred or observed that the infant appeared distressed. And Mark, when he was questioned on whether he was inflicting pain on the infant, the colleague then observed that he was doing some sort of circular motion while rubbing the infant down and cleaning the infant up. And he said something wildly inappropriate, like disturbing. Okay. And I can't repeat it here on the radio, and I'm not gonna. But if you're interested, I will share the link to the entire story on my Morning Buzz with Cat page. Okay. And let me just say, he said something while in the act that is very disturbing, and it's so evil. It's so unsettling. What this man allegedly did, and I'm using allegedly in quotation marks because he pleaded guilty. Right? He said he did it. It makes me so upset. How can people be this sick? Not only did he do something abhorrent and sick, he almost gets rewarded because he's avoiding jail time. You wanna know why? Because he uses she, her pronouns or whatever the heck, right? Because he's transgender. If you're trans, you're a part of an untouchable marginalized class, right? And they won't touch you with jail time. He's avoiding jail time, and he might even be able to clear his record. I hope it doesn't mean, and I'm not sure about this, but it is just a misdemeanor. I I hope that he's on some sort of sex offender registry and he's not allowed to be around children ever again. Is he going to have to register as a sex offender? I sure hope so. I don't know. That's the only thing I don't know about the story is I'm not sure if he had to register as a sex offender, but I sure hope um, he did, and I hope that happened. But I would not be surprised if he avoided that as well because of his transgender status. He did this to a baby, folks. He should be locked up for the rest of his life at the very least. At the very least. This is unfathomable. It even happened in Texas or in Kentucky. Okay. So if this can happen in Kentucky, I mean, it's unclear as to what consequences, if any, he would face had this occurred in a progressive state like Illinois. He probably wouldn't have faced any kind of consequences. At least this guy in Kentucky got like some sort of misdemeanor. But I don't know. They might have totally just, if he pled guilty, he wouldn't have any kind of charges. Uh, I think Florida would have been able to handle this better. they would have been able to give him a proper punishment, the state of Florida. I don't know what else to say about this outcome other than this is a complete miscarriage of justice, and I'm gonna leave it at that. I'm sorry, it was heavy lifting, but we got through it. Do wanna lighten things up a little bit. We will talk about, these no humans are illegal crowd. When people say that, that often means they're prioritizing foreign nationals over Americans and over veterans, who risked their lives for this country, by the way. Veterans risk their lives for this country. They risked their lives. And this Democrat, some Democrats in Maine, when they say no human is illegal, this is exactly what they mean. In fact, they even come out and say it out loud that they're going to prioritize foreign nationals over veterans. Maine Republicans are sounding off against a Democrat plan to create an office of new Americans that aims to assist in the economic and civic integration of immigrants in the state. So this is what's going on. Republicans are upset about it. Some are. Anyway, the state and local government committee, they advanced a proposal by a 6-3 vote with all Republicans opposing. If signed into law, this proposal in Maine, the Office of New Americans would create a two-person office within the government's Office of Policy, Innovation, and Future. And this is a brand new office that pays people, pays these immigrants money, uh, and it works on civic integration of these migrants. So it's a brand new office. Everywhere you look across the state of Maine, there are help wanted signs. This is what Governor Janet Mills said when she was announcing this Office of New Americans plan. Okay, so she's got a new plan. And she says, quote, "We need workers and new Americans who want to support themselves and their families. This can be an important part of that solution." So she's saying that these new Americans, these illegal immigrants, we'll get to that in a second. They're not new Americans, but these illegal immigrants, they are a solution to the help wanted signs. We're going to take a quick break, but I'm going to come back. We're going to play uh, a clip, and you're going to be shocked. An actual Democrat official says the quiet part out loud. We're going to prioritize foreign nationals over veterans. These are the words that came out of this official's mouth. I'm back next. This is the Morning Buzz on Cities 92.9. Good morning. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. It's Friday. And smash that like button and share this out with your friends. We're going to come back. I got a good news story for you. Um, I like to share these with you because I know the news of the day can be a lot. It's some heavy lifting. Today is also National Pizza Day. I love pizza and chocolate day. Let the countdown to Valentine's Day begin. Super Bowl Sunday, this Sunday. And if you're not from Kansas City and if you're not from San Francisco, you don't have any ties to either area. You're a football fan, but your team isn't playing in the Super Bowl. But who do you vote or root for, right? Um, I am going to root for the San Francisco 49ers, because screw Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift, 1. 2, I'm kind of superstitious here because the last leap year, which was in 2020, obviously, it was the, Kansas City Chiefs and the 49ers, okay? Um, and Joe Biden won and the Kansas City Chiefs won. Okay, so I'm thinking that if the 49ers win, Donald Trump will win. So, what team are you rooting for? Let me know. I'm next in the buzz. Woohoo! Good morning. This is the Morning Buzz. It's National Pizza Day. Yes. Did you know that $38 billion worth of pizzas are sold every year in the United States? I love pizzas. I like making homemade pizzas. I even make the dough. I know how to toss the dough. I use like my fists and I kind of make it into a blanket. I love like just these massive pizzas and I've got a big pizza pan and I throw it into the oven. uh, 3 billion pizzas are sold in the US each year. 3 billion Americans, they eat, just across the nation, 350 slices of pizza per second. Wow. Uh, 13% of Americans eat pizzas, on any given day. 93% of Americans have at least 1 slice of pizza per month. That's probably me. I probably have, like, 1 slice of pizza per month. Maybe, like, every 2 months, 3 months is probably more accurate. The average American eats more than 23 pounds of pizza a year. That's insane. Roughly 17% of males ages 2 and 39 eat pizza for breakfast, lunch, or dinner on any given day. Wow. 251.7 million pounds of pepperoni are consumed every year in the US just from pizza. Okay. 61% of Americans, they prefer thin crust. I'm a thick crust person. I'm also a deep dish person. I like deep dish. I'm, from up north a little bit, and I love my deep dish. There's a 35% rise in pizza delivery sales on Super Bowl Sunday, which is this Sunday. There's approximately 70,000 pizzerias across the United States, and most people eat pizza on Saturday nights. Yeah, I will say that I most people eat pizza on Saturday nights. I ate pizza just this past Saturday night, but I made it. I made the pizza like from scratch. It was so much fun. I made the dough, I made the sauce all from scratch. It was great. But Super Bowl Sunday, are you ordering pizza? And if you're not from Kansas City or, if you're not from San Francisco and you don't have any ties to either area and they're not really your your favorite teams, but you're a football fan, okay? Um, and your team isn't playing in the Super Bowl, who do you root for, right? Well, I don't watch football at all. I don't watch the NFL. I watch Formula One racing, which is odd, I know. I kinda like NASCAR. But if I were to watch football, I typically watch college ball. I think it's less toxic than the NFL. But if I was going to root for anyone, I'd probably root for the 49ers. And here's why. Uh, in 2020, it was a leap year, and Joe Biden and Donald Trump, they were obviously facing off, and Joe Biden won the Super Bowl, or Joe Biden won the presidency, and the Kansas City Chiefs, they won the Super Bowl. So, fast forward to 2024, it's Donald Trump versus Biden again, and I'm a little superstitious. I think that if the 49ers win, that's pretty pretty good sign that Donald Trump is gonna win. So, yeah, that's who I'm rooting for, the 49ers. Who are you rooting for? And what factors into your decision as to who you root for? Maybe you're rooting for Kansas City because you like Taylor Swift. I don't know why. But yeah, I'm really all about the food. I love the food during the Super Bowl. And I doubt I'm not going to probably tune into it, but we'll see. Maybe I'll catch some highlights, but I'm definitely gonna look to see if the 49ers win because I want Donald Trump to win the presidency. Okay, I do have to take a quick break, but you're listening to the Morning Buzz. We're gonna be right back. We're gonna talk about the state of Maine. Okay, because Maine, there's this Democrat plan out there, and it's called the Office of the New Americans, or of New Americans, and it aims to assist in economic and civic integration of immigrants in the state. And this was a proposal. It's the office is going to be a two-person office within the or governor's office of policy, innovation, and future. And the governor said some things that shocked me. So we're going to come back. They actually said the quiet part out loud, folks. They said that they're going to put foreign nationals, they're going to put these illegals over, they're going to prioritize them over veterans. They said that out loud. I've got the clip here next in the buzz. Wow. This is a crazy story, and we're going to chat about it here. We're also going to talk about Joe Biden seeing more dead people. He saw dead people for a second time this month. He claims that he had a conversation with a German chancellor who's been dead for 4 years. Okay, 4 years after his death. He's seeing dead people. Earlier, he says that he had a or earlier this week, he said that he had a conversation with the French president, with a French president who's been dead since 1996. So it's either Joe Biden is seeing dead people or there's elder abuse going on in the White House. We've got to talk about it here coming up in just a little bit. But before I took the break, I was telling you all about this story out of Maine, and when you believe that no human is illegal, that often means prioritizing foreign nationals over veterans who risk their lives for this country. At least for some Democrats in Maine, it does. Okay. When they say no human is illegal, what they really mean is that they're going to be prioritizing foreign nationals over veterans who risked their lives for this country. Let's take a listen to this. This is a clip, and you're not going to believe it, but they said the quiet part out loud. Here we go. This is the Morning Buzz, Cities 92.9. You can always text in at 309-451-9299. Uh, Absolutely incredible. So, according to Town Hall, I've got the story here. Maine Republicans, they're sounding off against this Democrat plan to create an Office of New Americans. And what this office does, it aims to assist in economic and civic integration of immigrants in the state. So the state and local government committee advanced the proposal by 6-3. So it was a 6-3 vote. They advanced this proposal. All the Republicans on this committee, the state and local committee, they opposed it. Now, if signed into law, what's going to happen? Well, the Office of New Americans, they're going to create a two-person office within the governor's office of policy, innovation, and future. And here's what Governor Janet Mills said. Okay. Everywhere you look across Maine, there's these help wanted signs. Then she says, we need workers. The new Americans, i.e., the illegal immigrants, who want to support themselves and their families can be an important part of that solution. Their solution to the help wanted signs. This is what the governor of Maine, Janet Mills, said when announcing this plan. My administration will do what we can to ensure that every person can contribute to the economy and successfully enter and stay in our workforce. Wow. Migrants, they're not new Americans. Okay, they're foreign nationals. You are not afforded that title by simply arriving to America. That used to be something people worked for, and this is a slap in the face to people who came to this country legally and immigrated here from other countries. And it's a slap in the face to people who are currently waiting to legally immigrate here from other countries. There's people who are doing the legal route and they're waiting. Okay. It's insane that this Democrat thinks that handing out welfare, because really what this is, it's welfare, this plan. They're going to hand out money, welfare, to foreign nationals, and they think that this will somehow solve the problem of the help wanted signs everywhere. And even if there are help wanted signs, folks, handing out free welfare won't solve that. Okay. How incredibly stupid does one have to be to believe that handing out welfare does anything to fuel the economy? You're giving them money. Why would they work? Why would the immigrants work if you're giving them money through this plan? Okay, they're not gonna apply to the job. Why? Because they've got money in their hands. And it's also not the job. I guess I have to say this. It's not the job of the elected officials to recruit foreign nationals to solve this problem. It's not your job. Okay. If you got a help wanted sign in your window, you gotta entice people to come work for you. You have to be an enticing place to work. Okay, so that's the really it's the company's problem. They've got to figure out how they're going to hire employees. It's not the government's job. It's not the elected officials to recruit. It's not their job to recruit these foreign nationals for these businesses. So here's what a state representative. His name is Mike Soboleski, and he's a Republican. And this is what he said, quote, "You simply cannot have an open border and generous welfare state. It'll eventually collapse the system. Maine taxpayers, they're already overtaxed and struggling to make ends meet with day-to-day costs exploded by inflation and overspending in Washington, D.C. Our people do not deserve and cannot bear the burden of supporting an additional 75,000 people in this state. We need to take care of our people first." And it's incredible. Her name is Dalek. She's the Democrat there who says she's from Somalia and she's on this state and local government committee. And she made the case for why new Americans should be prioritized over veterans, arguing that it's necessary because former members of the military, of the US military, have the advantage of speaking English. And this is necessary to create an office for these new Americans and not veterans because veterans, they speak English. These people don't speak English. How is it necessary since former members of the US military have the advantage of speaking English? What does that even mean? They speak English. They're American, unlike these new Americans, these so called new Americans. My goodness, these people, they're so incredibly stupid. I'm surprised that they remember to breathe oxygen. I really am. I'm shocked that they remember to get up, brush their teeth, and get dressed in the morning. It doesn't even make sense. It's necessary that we open up this new office, this plan, we give them welfare because they're not English speaking. We don't do this for our veterans because they're English speaking. What does it even mean? All right. I do have to shift gears here. You're listening to the Morning Buzz. I'm live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. You can see me there. And I want to chat about Sage Ops. So Sage Ops, it's a news outlet. Okay. And they posted this undercover video footage that exposed how Lakeland Copper Beach Middle School. Okay. So this is middle school, and they posted this undercover footage that exposes the sexually inappropriate assignments given to middle school children. We're talking 11 and 12 years old. This is kind of crazy. Um, so just a sneak peek for you because we've got to take a break here. According to Sage Ops, for years, a seventh grade science teacher, has had 11 and 12-year-old students take a personality test that reveals their romantic tendencies. Other class assignments include links to how to have the best sex uh, and where can I get a sex doll, sex toys, penis pumps, how to my penis. Enlarge my penis. Like, this is quite literally the names of the assignments that this seventh grade teacher is giving to 11 and 12-year-olds. Okay, so this Lakeland Copper Beach middle school, this is in New York. And the mother, she kind of undercover, she was recording a meeting with the school's principal and the science teacher after discovering her seventh grade son had been given multiple sexually inappropriate assignments during the school year by the teacher, by the seventh grade science teacher. The seventh grade teacher assigned material. I mean, it was called What's Your Romantic Tendencies? Groping, sex dolls, sex toys. I mean, these are assignments that the teacher is giving to 11 and 12-year-olds. So she catches them. She catches their reaction to this, the superintendent's reaction, the principal's reaction. She catches all of it. And Sage Ops, which is a media outlet, they released it, the undercover video. It's about 6 minutes long. We're not going to play the whole thing, but I do have to take a quick break. And then we're also going to get to Putin, um, and the interview that he had with Tucker Carlson. It was an incredible interview. I watched it last night. Putin, I'm just gonna say this, and I do not. I'm just saying that this guy is a genius. Okay, he made Tucker Carlson look like a dumb American. This guy, I think he knows what he's talking about. And that was just my take from this, is that Vladimir Putin is quite literally a genius. The way he conducts himself, it's very clear that he's up to speed. He's a genius. Uh, and he just was talking about how, Ukraine, it was a long period of the interview. It was him talking about the history of Ukraine, and my eyes glazed over a little bit, and I was like, I don't understand. And then eventually we got around to fast forward to 2008 and the whole Crimea situation. But then he also talks about, hey, there is Nazism going on. This Ukrainian nationalism is actually Nazism. And he brings up what happened in Canada, where the Canadian Parliament and the president, I mean, that's Justin Trudeau, they applauded this Nazi, like quite literally. And he brings that up. So we're going to chat about it because he's got some very interesting things to say. Um, and I'm going to try to break it down the best I can. I did watch it. I'll be back next on the buzz. So Putin has a message for America, and I watched that whole interview last night, and really, it's a lot to digest. He was talking about how really what I think we can sum up the entire interview, say, try to put it in simple terms, is America, they haven't made good on their promise since the USSR, where they were not going to expand NATO. He has an issue with expanding NATO. He has an issue with the gates being open for Ukraine to join in NATO. They're not a part of NATO right now, but um, there has been this hostility towards Russia post USSR, and there was some sort of agreement, right? And I'm not a history buff, but there was some sort of agreement, and it said, "Hey, the United States, the goal or the thing that we came to an agreement on is don't expand NATO." So let's take a listen here to one of these clips from the interview. Here we go. Let's take a listen. So there you have it. Uh, he has a message for America, and that message is: you've got border issues, you've got issues with and that that you have nothing better to do, so you're fighting in Ukraine. So, really, it's a proxy war. It's NATO fighting Russia through Ukraine, um, and from what I understood in the interview, it doesn't sound like Putin wants to take over the entirety of Ukraine. Okay, we're talking about a very small strip, and Ukraine is, and he went into this long history of how Russia and Hungary, they're the ones who should be splitting that land. Tucker Carlson asks him at one point in the interview, "Hey, have you promised the Hungarian president a bit of this land once you take it?" And he said no. Putin said no. He hasn't made any kind of promises like that. Did I believe him? No. They're very proud. He's a very proud person, that's for sure. And he's kind of a genius. And uh, the way he speaks, it's just so embarrassing. I don't know how, like here in the United States, we have a guy like Joe Biden, and then um, this guy's not scared of Joe Biden at all. And that's very clear because um, let's take a listen to the clip. Um, he's not worried about the United States sending weapons over to Ukraine at all. Um, he says, if we were to stop sending weapons, the war would end. Um, but let's take a listen. Here we go. Here we go. So Tucker asks him, why don't you just talk to him about what? Please don't send weapons to Ukraine, uh, like, and beg. Um, so I'm gonna be back. This is the Morning Buzz, 7 o'clock hour. We're gonna talk about John Kennedy and a few other stories. Stay tuned. Good morning. We're going to be talking about Joe Biden and how he hears from dead people. Go ahead, smash that like button. And we're going to be back talking about that. And then we're also going to chat a little bit about this mother. She goes in, she has a camera, and she exposes this superintendent and the principal who are really coming to the defense of a 7th grade teacher. He's a science teacher, and he had 11-year-olds and 12-year-olds take a personality test that reveals their romantic tendencies. Very highly inappropriate assignments. We're going to be chatting about that. Plus, John Kennedy, he's blasting Bidenomics, and he does it very beautifully and very poetically. I'll be back. Oh boy, we've got people in the comments section. Dan, Dan, I think he's a Democrat. I'm not too sure, but he says, quit putting illegals who aren't stealing our tax dollars on the same level as refugees. On the same level as refugees. So, Dan, I think that this is important to talk about because refugees. I don't think a whole lot of people understand what that is. What seeking asylum, what this refugee status is. This is where you are coming from a country that is either A, war torn, or B, you are facing religious persecution, political persecution, and you seek asylum in a country that is not that country that is prosecuting you or persecuting you for your faith or for your political affiliation, or it's not it's a war torn country. So right now Mexico is not a war torn country, and these people have to make a case for asylum. So they have to say that, hey, I'm facing religious persecution. So there is a case where they actually got deported. This big German family, it was like, I don't know, 15 kids or something crazy like that, and they came over here and they sought asylum in the United States. From Germany to the United States, they sought asylum, and they were asylum seekers, and they made the case that, hey, because Germany came in and they kept taking the kids away, uh, because they wanted to homeschool their children. So this was persecution. This was a religious persecution. They wanted to teach their children about their religion, their Christian faith, um, and they wanted to homeschool their kids. And what would happen would be the German government would come to the home and take the kids away and go drive them and take them to public school and force them into public school. That's not freedom, right? And you have to make a case. A, a vast majority of these illegal immigrants, they are not refugees. A vast majority are not refugees. There is a very specific definition. And on top of that, there's a lot of illegals who have come over and they've gone to different countries. Okay. So this is international law. If you are facing some sort of religious persecution, or you're in a war torn country, or you fear the government is going to harm you in some sort of way, you have to seek asylum in the first country that you land. Okay, so a lot of what these people are doing, they're going to Spain, they're flying to Spain, then they're flying to Mexico. They're coming from China to Mexico to the United States. If you're from China and you're coming to Mexico, that you've already gone to another country and you're coming in through the southern border, you should have sought asylum in Mexico. This is international law. You cannot just cherry pick and kind of shop around for what country you want to seek asylum in. A lot of these people make it to Spain. They fly out of Spain. They go to all kinds of countries they can before they get to the United States. A lot of them are going to Mexico. Mexico is not a war torn country, and they'd have to make the case, if they're from Mexico, that they are facing some sort of religious persecution or some sort of political persecution or something similar to that story that I told you about. They have to make their case individually. Um, so Mexico, if you're from Mexico but largely the Chinese nationals, they're either coming in through the California border or they're coming in through the Mexican border. And those people who come in through the Mexican border, they should seek asylum in in Mexico. You can't just shop around for the country you want to seek asylum in. So when you say quit putting illegals who are stealing our tax dollars on the same level as refugees, I don't think that you're really grasping the definition of of what a refugee is. None of these people are refugees. If maybe maybe they are, like, I would say a very small portion, maybe about 10%, and I'm being gracious there, about 10% of these people coming over that southern border are refugees, according to the actual legal definition of what a refugee is. So, sorry, Dan, um, there are no refugees. Like, and statistically, these refugees, they just it's not even a relevant conversation to have. A lot of them are not refugees. Um, I do want to talk about this story. It was incredible. This mother, she um, was kind of undercover. She had like this camera and she was filming some administration here. Sage Ops, they are a news outlet and they posted this undercover footage that exposes this school in New York. It's called Lakeland Copper Beach Middle School. And there was a teacher there that was assigning sexually inappropriate assignments. Let's take a listen to the clip here. You're listening to the Morning Buzz. Here's the undercover video. Here we go. So, they dropped the story, and I mean, what I understand, I mean, the assistant superintendent. Uh, oh, wow. A lot of the yeah, I can't even show that on the YouTube stream, that's wild, but they've got pictures of sex graphic images that he's showing children, and the superintendent, Norman, he looks like he's disturbed. He's upset, he's disturbed, like, visibly on the video. So according to Sajobs, for years, a 7th grade science teacher has given 11 and 12-year-old students a personality test that reveals their romantic tendencies. We're talking about 11 and 12-year-olds here. Plus, he gave other assignments, including links to, quote, the best sex dolls, sex toys, and penis pumps. So, the Lakeland Copper Beach Middle School, which is in New York, mother, she kind of secretly recorded a meeting with the school principal, the science teacher, after discovering the 7th grade class had been given multiple sexually inappropriate assignments during the school year by that teacher, by the science teacher. So she goes and she sets up meetings with the principal, the superintendent, and then she also sets up one with the science teacher. The 7th grade teacher assigned to the following: what's your romantic tendencies? Groping, sex dolls, sex toys. These are assignments, penis pumps, and there's more. But the websites that the teacher assigned even warned on the website themselves that this was adult content only and it was not made for children. The websites that he was sharing with the students, it said on the website, hey, not for kids. So as you can see in the video, the content is extremely disturbing and deranged. I'm not going to share the entire video with you. It's more of a visual thing. You've got to really see and look at the assignments and the, the, what's on these websites that he was assigning. He was assigning these websites to the children. And you can see, I mean, this is disturbing. It's deranged, especially for it being assigned to minors. But rather than handle the situation in the best way possible, following this realization, they were exposed to this. The superintendent, the principal, um, and the principal. You can see he realizes what's going on here, and instead of handling the situation, they decided to cover it up. The parents were not notified as to what their children were exposed to. Just the undercover footage alone is extremely disturbing and difficult for me to watch. It's insane that this man decided to expose this type of content to kids. We can't even understand the amount of damage that he has done to these innocent students. Instead of actual education, schools all over the country and in your neighborhood, believe me. Okay, this happened in Hayward. She had to involuntarily resign. You don't think it's happening in District 87? You don't think it's happening at Unit 5? You'd be wrong. They're focusing on what's called comprehensive sex education, as if that should be any of their concern. It's asinine that these educators think it's their job to teach minors about sex. It's not. And society used to keep people who think like that away from schools. This is what happens when society not only condones degenerate behavior and mental illness, but they glorify it. Back in my day, 90% of the websites were blocked. You can shop online for clothes. You can visit any kind of websites. Okay, and that's no longer the reality in far too many schools across America. School staff, they decided to hide this information from parents, and that shows you that they know that they're in the wrong. But again, any damage that the teacher may or may not have caused to these students was not the concern. They were trying to think about how to make their lives easier. They didn't tell the parents that this happened. They were avoiding dealing with difficult parents. And, this undercover video, I'm sure this wasn't the easy way out for them. So they could have just informed the parents. I would have called the police on this science teacher and made a police report and everything. But they chose the hard way. And a mother, she got the courage to film these people without their knowledge and exposed that through Sage Ops, which is a news outlet. So I don't know about you, but I'm having a hard time believing that the school was ignorant as to what was going on. I'm sure somebody brought this to their attention, um, because wow, I mean, I don't know how kids don't. I mean, kids, those students probably brought it to their parents. But I have a hard time believing that the school was ignorant prior to this woman putting on a camera and showing them. All right, I do have to take a break, but when we come back, we're going to talk about John Kennedy. He's blasting Bidenomics, and he does it so beautifully. Uh, John Kennedy, he not only says what needs to be said, but he says it in a poetic, Southern twang, beautiful way. And I can't wait to chat about this clip. He compares Bidenomics to a fungal infection. So I'm back next in the buzz. If yep. Uh Hold on one second. Good morning. You can always text me at 309-451-9299. Having some technical difficulties. We'll get there. Here we go. I'll be back. Good morning. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. You guys can go ahead, smash that like button. We're going to come back talking a little bit about John Kennedy. Yes. And then next, we're going to talk about Joe Biden and how he saw dead people for a second time this month. He claims that he had a conversation with the German chancellor who's been dead over 4 years. So, all of that and more ahead. You can always count on John Kennedy, by the way, to say what needs to be said. And he does it in such a way. I'm excited to chat about that. But Joe Biden, am I right? I mean, the second time, something tells me that Kieran Jean Pierre is going to avoid eye contact with Ducey today. Uh, less than 24 hours after getting snippy with him for asking about Joe Biden seeing dead people, there's reports now that Joe Biden claimed to see another dead person. Either this is some sort of brilliant campaign tactic to make Biden look like he's lost what's left of his marbles, or someone needs to be arrested for elder abuse. I think it's the latter, folks. I think that somebody is abusing this guy. I'm back next. Oh, John Kennedy. He says it in such a way. I just love how he's blasting Binomics, as only in the only way he knows how, and he's blasting it, and he's saying, "Hey, defending Binomics is like defending a fungal infection." That's what John Kennedy says. I'm going to play the clip here in just a little bit. But we'll also talk about how Joe Biden, he's seen his second dead person this month, which is quite incredible. Um, two dead people 1 month. I'd imagine that Karen Jean-Pierre, she is going to be avoiding eye contact with Peter Ducey today because she doesn't want to answer the question. She got snippy with him, like about the first time he saw a dead person, which was the French president who was dead since like 1996. Now he's saying that he had a conversation with a German chancellor who's been dead for 4 years. So we're going to get into that. But first, let's play the clip. I'm excited. Here's John Kennedy. He's really just eviscerating Janet Yellen, who's fallen asleep on the button, the money printing button. Here we go. Wow. I love John Kennedy. I know that was a bit longer, folks, but it was so worth it because Republican Louisiana Senator John Kennedy got a rise out of her. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen. So he says, Madam Secretary, I've watched you for years, even before I came to Washington. And when I have time, I do. I enjoy reading your speeches. I think you're what cool looks like. Kennedy said this, drawing some laughs, of course, from the gallery. And he says, you're a good sport to go out every day and try to defend Bidenomics. It's like trying to defend a fungal infection. Bidenomics is really just paying more to live worse, isn't it? It's paying more to live worse. Yellen, she tried to stick to the typical leftist response by attempting to gaslight the masses that Bidenomics has nothing to do with the high prices everywhere, and it has nothing to do with your, empty wallet, and it has nothing to do with you being let go from your job. All that has, all that has it all has everything to do with the greedy capitalists, and it has nothing to do with Bidenomics. Duh. No, that's not true. Um, Here we have it. The quote: and as the economy began to recover, we quickly, of all advanced countries that experienced the pandemic, no country has done a better job than the United States in quickly having a labor market recovery, resuming growth. And we have the largest real wage increases of any advanced country. This is what Janet Yellen says. Then she goes on, she says, and then, medium term, Binomics is focused on helping middle class families lead better lives. It addresses the problems that they have, creates jobs. That's a joke, Janet. Janet, that's a joke. Wage increases. I don't know about you, but text me, let me know. Do you think that there's been some wage increases enough to combat these high prices? Uh, I'm sure we're all incredibly burnt out by the lies and by the gaslighting. We know Bidenomics, it doesn't create jobs. The jobs he's talking about, and I've said this multiple times, he's created more public sector jobs. Okay, this is working for the government in some sort of capacity. This is public sector jobs, not private sector jobs. And the jobs that came back from the pandemic, you can't count those, okay? So he's counting those, plus he's counting all of these public sector jobs that he's added. And wages, maybe on average, have gone up because they pay, Stacy over there, $100,000 to go get a senator a cup of coffee, right? That's what when they're talking about wage increases, they're talking about how these public sector people uh, have gotten more money because that's all they care about. They care about the public sector. They don't care about the private sector. Superintendents, yeah, sure, they keep getting raises. But do you get raises if you don't work for the government? No, probably not. Um, yeah, so arguably this Bidenomics, it's actually destroying jobs and it's destroying wages because everybody else is making money but you. The government's making money, but you aren't. The middle class has gotten more poor since Biden's been in office, but the real joke is claiming Bidenomics has done anything remotely beneficial for middle America. But these people don't care. They pretend they're all in it for the little guy, but in the reality, they're in it for the party of big business. Kennedy doesn't have to tell you, and I don't have to tell you how bad the economy is. This is a joke. This is a joke of a Treasury Secretary that does not have to tell you that. She doesn't have to, or John Kennedy doesn't have to tell you because you're living Bidenomics. And no matter what anyone says, money or the lack thereof, it speaks louder than words. And I don't have to tell you how bad the economy is. Kennedy doesn't have to tell you how bad the economy is. It doesn't matter how much Janet Yellen tries to tell you that Bidenomics isn't the problem. You're living it. And no matter what anybody says, money talks, or the lack thereof, it speaks louder than this lip service that Janet Yellen just gave you. about how wages are up. No. All right, I do have to take a quick break, but we're going to come back. We're going to talk about how Joe Biden sees dead people. This is the second time this week Joe's seen a dead person. That's next. So Biden, he saw dead people for a second time this month. Wow. Now something tells me that Kieran Jean-Pierre, she's going to be avoiding eye contact with Peter Ducey today. Less than 24 hours after getting snippy with Ducey for asking about Joe Biden seeing dead people, there's now reports that Joe Biden has claimed to see another dead person. Either this is a brilliant campaign tactic to make Biden look like he's lost or lost what's left of his marbles here, so that way they can install some sort of other nominee like Kamala Harris or Michelle Obama. I don't know. Or somebody needs to be arrested for elder abuse. Okay, those are the two options we've got. Either this is just some sort of campaign tactic, and they're making Joe Biden look like he lost his marbles completely, or he's actually being abused as an elder and he has very, very late stage dementia. Now, according to a White House poll report, Joe Biden, who needed a reporter to remind him what Hamas was at a fundraiser when he was talking about how shortly after he beat Donald Trump, he went to the G7 and told the world leaders that America was back. Biden was taken aback by what the German Chancellor Helmut Kohl said. This is the German Chancellor, Helmut Kohl. He says, "What would you say, Mr. President, if you picked up the London Times tomorrow morning and learned that there's 1,000 broken down doors of British Parliament? Killed some, it's inaudible here. I'm trying to quote this, but it's inaudible right here. Some blank on the way to deny the next prime minister to take office. What would you and you think what we would think. That's a quote from Joe Biden. So I scrambled through that. But point is, he says that he had a conversation with the German chancellor, and this has something obviously to do with January 6th or blah, blah, blah. Tiny problem. This conversation happened in 2021, and the German chancellor here that Joe Biden claims that he talked to died in 2017. And the worst part about this, Biden's telling the same story as he told in Las Vegas last week, where he claimed he was talking with a French president, Mitterrand, who died in 1996. So this is the same conversation. He's saying he told the same exact story in Las Vegas last week, claiming that he talked with this French president in 1996. He died in 1996. You can't be. I mean, I'm wondering if Biden kept calling French President Macron and the German Chancellor, you know, Macron by their names, or Merkel. That's the German Chancellor now, and then Macron is the French president right now by their names of their dead predecessors. I don't know if like he's just mixing them up, and nobody had the strength to correct him in the moment. Uh, but I don't know what's going on. His brain, it's like 90% mashed potatoes at this point. And Biden's connection with the dead makes this Ducey Kieran Jean Pierre exchange from a few hours earlier that much more unintentionally hilarious. Like, it's so funny. Not even like 24 hours later, he does it again. So Ducey asks Kieran Jean Pierre, okay, why did he say that he had a conversation with a French president who's been dead since 1996? Why did he say that? And how is he going to convince voters that he's mentally fit? And Kieran Jean Pierre, she dismissed him and she said, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole with you. And like 6 hours later, he does it again with the German chancellor. It's quite incredible. All right. I do need to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to be talking a little bit about this one story. It's about a trans daycare worker who sexually abuses a baby. It's a hard story, but we're going to get through it. He got 0 jail time after taking a plea deal. That's next on the buzz. A Democrat official. She says the quiet part out loud. And she wants illegals given priority over veterans. Quite literally, this is what she said. This Democrat official, she says she's from Somalia, and this is out of Maine, the story. So, according to Town Hall, Maine Republicans, they're sounding off against the Democratic plan to create this new office. It's called the Office of New Americans. And what this office does, it aims to assist in economic and civic integration of immigrants in the state. So there is this state and local government committee, and they advanced this proposal for this new office by a 6-3 vote. All the Republicans opposed it. If signed into law, this new office, this Office of New Americans, it's going to create a two-person office within the governor's office of policy, innovation, and future. And this is what the governor said, Janet Mills. She says, everywhere you look across Maine, there's these help wanted signs. We have the same issue here in Illinois. She says, quote, we need workers. We need new Americans. We want to support, we need new Americans who support themselves and their families. And they can be an important part of that solution where we fill these jobs where there's help wanted signs. So she says, quote, my administration will do what we can to ensure that every person can contribute to the economy and successfully enter and stay in our workforce. Migrants are not new Americans. They're foreign nationals, and they can't be afforded that title by simply arriving. Just because you simply arrive does not mean you are an American. Okay. It's a slap in the face to people who are currently waiting to legally immigrate to our country and people who have already legally immigrated to our country. It's insane that Democrats think that handing out welfare to foreign nationals is going to be it's going to somehow solve this problem of the help wanted signs everywhere, because that's what this program is. It's essentially welfare. They give them places to live, they give 'em money, they civically integrate them into the state. I don't know what that really means, but look, uh, I don't understand. We simply cannot have an open border and be a generous welfare state. And this is what a representative from the state of Maine, a GOP rep, his name's Mike Sobolewski. He says eventually the system's going to collapse. Maine taxpayers are already overtaxed; they're struggling to make ends meet with the day-to-day costs, and it's been exploded by inflation and overspending. The day-to-day costs have exploded the prices. And um, he said it's because of Washington, D.C. That's why, because of their overspending. And he says, quote, our people do not deserve and cannot bear the burden of supporting an additional 75,000 people in the state. We have to take care of our people first. So this woman, I mean, I've got the clip here. This woman, she straight up says that new Americans should be prioritized over veterans. I'm going to play this clip here for you. You know, when you believe that no human is illegal, that often means you're prioritizing foreign nationals over veterans. That's what this means. At least it does to this Democrat. Let's take a listen. Here we go. Let me pull up the clip. Here we go. I mean, that's what she said. She said the quiet part out loud. She said that, uh we're going to prioritize illegal immigrants over, veterans, and she said it was because they spoke English. They speak English because they're American, unlike these new Americans. And how is it necessary, since former members of the military have the advantage of speaking English, that's what she said. It's necessary for us to prioritize new Americans, these illegal immigrants. My goodness, these people are incredibly stupid. I'm surprised that they remember to breathe oxygen. Alright, I'm gonna be back. We're gonna chat with Regan Deering. She's running in the State House district. It's the it parts of McLean County, Gator. She's also a board member. We're gonna talk a lot about a few things going on in Illinois. One thing that concerns me, there's this bill out there, hopefully we'll get to chat with her about that, where there's this Democrat from Chicago, and he's introduced a bill now, that makes it to where single family zoning is banned. Yes, quite literally, this is a Single Family Zoning Ban Act. It was proposed by Cam Buckner. It's HB 4795. What it says is pretty interesting. It says, a zoning unit, it defines it as, quote, "A county, municipality, or township that has adopted zoning regulations," and, um I don't know, I know that McLean County has a zoning regulations, so I'm concerned. I'm worried that we're going to be banning single-family zoning here in McLean County, which means there are no more houses going to be built. The houses that are on a single plot of land with some grass and with a roof, right, those aren't going to exist anymore, only apartments can exist. I'm back now. Woohoo! Hey, good morning. This is the Morning Buzz. I so do appreciate you tuning in each and every morning, 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. That's the Morning Buzz. City's 92.9. Uh, Here we go. It's live radio. And I am here with a special guest. Her name is Regan Deering, and she's a state rep candidate in the 88th. We've got so much to talk about. And before I take a break, I was telling you a little bit about Cam Buckner. Oh, Cam. Aw. He got out there on Twitter and he started talking about how we need to make housing more affordable. And this is why he's proposed a bill. It's called HB 4795. During the break, I just filled Regan in on the bill. Let her read it. Regan, first, let's get to this bill, your reaction, and thanks for joining me.
Well, good morning to you. Yes, we briefly read through the technical terms of his House bill. I'm a little bit uncertain about the title in and of itself. Single family unit bans.
Yeah, single
Remind me,
family.
I don't have it in front of me anymore, but
Yeah, it's single family zoning ban act. Single family zoning ban
let's hope it's not one more attack on the family.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know what this is all about because it says in the bill, a zoning unit would be described as or defined a locality, a township, and they adopt zoning regulations. So obviously, McLean County, Macon County, a lot of areas in your district here, for your district, right? um, but Oh, oh, I he's saying that it's only going to be in Butler says it's only gonna be 8 cities, but the way you read this bill and being that they're gonna be a state legislature, is it too broad? I mean, what he says a zoning unit, and then he claims it's only gonna be cities in the state of Illinois. Your thoughts just overall about the bill? Um,
Well, without having gotten too far into it and sort of trying to understand his context, bills on paper are hard to interpret. It does sound way too broad. I like your concern for it being a zoning unit potentially being a county. Because if we're talking about populations between 100,000 to 500,000, certainly many counties are going to fall into that category. And, you know, as we were saying offline, I mean, people are leaving cities to try and go to smaller neighborhoods to raise their families, to be able to have a safe community, have sidewalks, have a yard, have affordable housing. So, I'll have to wait and see what kind of the pushback might be on this or further explanation from Representative Buckner. But generally, on its face, doesn't sound very fair.
no, no, I don't know. I don't like the whole idea where you're getting rid of these, houses with big fence, maybe a roof, maybe a nice little yard. And if the zoning unit is in fact a county and not a city, then we're looking at about 20 counties in Illinois that would be affected where they can no longer zone for single family use, residential. And I mean that would have real impact in the county. There's housing developers that have projects going already. So what happens to those projects? They might not have broken ground yet, uh, and they might have to change up their zoning before they actually break ground in some of these subdivisions. They're
Yeah, and let's talk about homeownership in the state of Illinois. I mean, it's supposed to be one of the greatest wealth building tools. So we're specifically thinking about young families. We already have a housing crisis. To be able to think about a typical single family home now being in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, when you're in an economy, high interest rates, it feels like all the forces are working against them. And we don't need further legislation that's going to regulate, our housing industry.
mm, yeah, pulling back on the zoning regulations, pulling back on some of these housing regulations that may bring down the cost of these. But I don't understand if they're just all multifamily housing, then you're looking at like rent. Right?
Mhm.
So how is that affordable? And from what I understand, he hasn't made an argument that, the rent prices are gonna be cheaper or anything like this. We're just talking about putting apartments up everywhere. And if
the
you,
condos.
ask anybody,
Mhm.
that that's not more affordable than, a mortgage. It's about the same. If
Yeah,
not, it's higher.
that's
A
exactly.
two-bedroom apartment right here in Bloomington Normal probably goes for $1,200, $1,400 a month.
Mhm. Yeah, you're exactly right.
So,
Let's hope it goes nowhere.
yeah, I do wanna shift gears. Tell me a little bit about, what you've been hearing on the campaign trail. What are most people concerned about? What's the biggest concern in the 88?
Well, now that early voting has started, we're kind of in that sprint towards the March 19th primary. So we are continuing to be present throughout the 88th, and knocking doors is generally the best way to introduce yourself to a voter and then to hear their concerns. So I was laughing yesterday in that crazy 40-mile-an-hour wind. I was out knocking up here in one of the newer subdivisions in Bloomington Normal, which was missing a few trees, so the wind was pretty intense up there. The little pond in the back had whitecaps going. It was so strong. But for those that are answering the door, I mean, for sure the number one issue is the economy and the cost of things based on inflation. We're talking about home ownership, so you've got your, property tax bills that are going up. Our groceries are still high, our gas is still high, rents are high, and so people are really concerned about, the cost of living in Illinois. So that continues to be a very, very, popular conversation. And then I would say immigration, the illegal immigration crisis at the border that's been created by this Biden administration and has now arrived at our back door here in Illinois and even here in central Illinois. The problems they're facing in Chicago are trickling down here, and people are really concerned.
You bring up groceries. I wanna talk about this really quick. Um, you're JB Pritzker, and I gotta get your reaction to what a Republican said. And this is part of the Illinois grocery now eligible to apply for funding for energy efficient equipment upgrades. It, and this was at a cost of $3.5 million per taxpayer. So this state senator, he's Republican Dale Fowler. Okay, so he's was talking about rural grocery stores in his district, how they compete with Walmart. But I asked him, I said, "Hey, it's 3.5 million a month," and he had this to say. He said, "It's going to be interesting to see who, how, and why some grocers are awarded, and what that vetting process looks like." Quote, "$2.5 million is not a lot of money statewide when you spread it out. It's not, because when you spread out 3.5 million throughout the entire state, yeah." In the same breath, another quote, um, he says that taxation by energy costs are more difficult for rural grocers to buy equipment for their home. So we do have a problem with maybe like some rural grocers or cops comes to mind, not these big cops, but small rural. But maybe in these rural communities, you've got a grocer who is kind of like paper clips and a straw, you know what I mean? And like he's going back there and he's like,
One cooler. Yeah.
yeah, he's got the one cooler that he's like beating, and he can't afford a new,
Mhm.
he can't afford a new freezer. So your thoughts here about the response from the legislator. What would your response be if I said 3.5
Well, we're in Illinois where we have a $56 billion budget, so I can understand how 3.5 million seem like a large amount of money, in the scheme of the Illinois spending. However, it can have an impact for sure. I mean, the state gives out grant dollars in very large amounts, which, when you get down, I mean, I've written grants before. I know how you have to account for every cost and every tax and etcetera. And so we do have a lot of food deserts. We do have rural communities that, their solution right now is a Dollar General.
Mhm.
And if you get a Dollar General Plus, that means you might get fresh produce and access to more grocery type items instead of chips and pop and whatever you might find at a gas station or a quick
Well,
stop.
let me ask you this, and I'm just gonna press a little bit. It I grew up rural, right? And we drove 30 minutes to Walmart to go get our cat food and stuff like that. There
Mhm.
was like a Jiffy store up in town, but they didn't have like everything that we needed, and we drove about 30 minutes in town into Kankakee, and we got what we needed. I just don't see, and he mentions it too in his, interview with me, that, "Hey, there's one county that I have in my district that doesn't have any grocery." There's places that make the food, and then there's places that have, you know what I mean? Like, we
Mhm,
grew up on a corn farm, it's like, okay, well, we live in the middle of nowhere, there's a lot of land out here, and there's no grocery store,
mhm.
not for 30 miles, right? What's the problem? Is there a problem with that?
Well, I don't know that there is necessarily a problem with that. I mean, to your point, some people love to live out in the middle of, rural towns, and then they've got their space and their land, and it's not a problem, but we do want to be able to have access, to nutrition and to food and quality food. I know a lot of towns are working on co-ops. I don't know if that was an opportunity where you had, up in Kankakee as well, where we could try and get some of that fresh produce, maybe some meats. You know, I think as a society, we're really moving towards growing your own,
Mhm,
which is a positive thing as well. But, our rural communities, do need access to food, and so I'd like to think that as we build up that infrastructure, you know, a food source is a priority. So, the state funding is gonna be helpful. I think that, you know, trying to figure out that qualification process is always interesting. The government standards, the government giveth and the government taketh away, and the government sets boundaries and regulations, and sometimes you make $5 too much or you make $5 too little to qualify, so that will be a hurdle in and of itself. But I mean, I am all for, giving more food sources to our rural communities. Even in Decatur, when I serve as the board president for our local food pantry, and we have seen an increase in people coming to us
mm,
because not only are groceries costing so much, and to your point, if you have transportation, then getting the gas to be able to drive across town to a Walmart or to a county market or something like that
mhm,
is something that is an extra burden to you. But the food sources have to be strengthened. We're actually working on a grant opportunity to be able to take excess produce and excess product from our rural farmers and get them into low-income households,
hmm,
which would be at no cost um, to the consumer, but we're helping put dollars back into our farm communities, helping make sure that, the product they are continuing to produce is utilized and they are paid for those products. So, I don't know why we can't kind of build up what we already have. I don't know that we need to build kind of new grocery stores, but if we can provide some resources to those types of grocers, as you mentioned, who have double and triple energy bills, and they're running maybe a cooler from, the 2000s
yeah,
that's just a suck on energy, and it's not a high efficiency, but, the government stepping in and saying, "Ooh, but we're gonna give you this great new cooler," that's a high energy and efficiency. It's sort of, you know, I'm not sure it's the best solution.
yeah,
We're
'cause
we in
it's
Illinois are very, moving towards green energy, and we're gonna control all your appliances, and no doubt it's gonna be an electric appliance, not a gas appliance,
yeah.
if they have
Well,
their
it's
way.
kinda like the snake eating its tail, where, you dump all this money, 3,500,000, right, and it's a small amount, sure, you might not feel it, you might not notice, it might be like a cent, a fraction of a cent, more that you're paying in taxes to pay off this grant is fair, uh, those little things start to add up when you're doing multiple grant programs for all kinds of things. I mean, there was just another grant for Route 66, they're gonna put lights up, which is great. I love Route 66, but it's death by 1,000
A
cuts,
thou
and it's like
You're
you're
absolutely right.
eating your tail, and
Mhm,
the reason why, so I tried to get at the heart of the issue here was the Dale Fowler guy, and I was like, "Okay, why can't grocery groceries afford to do by themselves?
mhm,
Why can't they?" It's the death by 1,000 cuts where they're taxed over taxation, and he admitted that. So it's like, I cannot see the grant. I mean, I just think that a lot of legislators just think that it comes out of nowhere.
right. No, you're absolutely right. I mean, and everyday citizens who sit and have to balance their own house budget, right? I mean, you know how much money's coming in, you know how much money's going out, and you know when you have to make cuts, you have to make priorities, put things on pause, you have to make do with what you have because, you know, ideally, you buying something when you have the money for it. We're becoming very, very reliant on credit in today's economy. It's a little bit terrifying. Some of these, you know, pay now, save later, kind of whatever
Mhm.
is the buzzword, and people are putting everyday consumables on credit, groceries, gas included, and, you can pay the minimum and then you're tacking on another $100 every month for your gas, etcetera, and when do you catch up?
Mhm. When do you catch up? I do have to take a quick break. We have to take a break. But you're here for the whole hour, for the
Alright.
whole 8 o'clock hour, so we've got so much to talk about. I do wanna talk about, this story I talked with you about, actually, the Illinois schools, being recommended to adopt some sort of it's mental health screening
Mhm.
survey, yes, and they're recommending it, they're not mandating it. So we're gonna be back, we're gonna talk about mental health screenings, recommended by the state of Illinois. That's next on The Buzz. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Whoa, it's the Cat Peterson Show, The Morning Buzz. I'm your host, and we've been talking about a lot of things with Regan so far. She's here for the whole 9 o'clock hour or 8 o'clock hour until 9 o'clock. And I'm so excited she's here because we've got to talk about something that I've been dying to chat with her about in person. We talked a little bit briefly on the phone about a new Illinois law recommending that Illinois schools implement something called a mental health screening for students enrolled in K through 12th grade. So Regan, who is an Illinois House candidate, folks, she's running in the 88th. Go Regan.
Thank you.
She she told me a little bit about these mental health screenings, and she said that this is a government expansion program that's gonna be implemented this fall, so fall of 2024. Tell me a little bit about this mental health screening. What did you find out?
Well, it came to my attention. I'm currently serving as a school board member in Mount Zion District 3. I have two girls still in public school there. And um, the mental health concerns in our society are kind of coming to the forefront, and rightfully so. Coming out of COVID, we have a lot of students who, being forced out of schools, being forced to wear masks, social isolation. We're really going to see the effects of those on, mental health, physical health, et cetera, for probably the next decade. However, government enforcement of, something like mental health screenings, doesn't sound like a great way to tackle the problem. 'Cause my understanding is this screening, which is, for recommendation in all schools, applies to students in 7th through 12th grade, and I've read the survey. Um, it's very invasive. It does ask for very personal information. I have concerns about the types of questions they're asking. For example, I think it's maybe by the 3rd question, they're asking if your gender identify matches your biological birth assignment. 3rd question,
Oh
maybe
boy.
the 4th. So, right off the bat, you know where this is going, and who's behind sort of these surveys and what we're wanting to find out. It goes on to ask about living situations, drug and alcohol use, sexual behaviors, etc.
One question that really disturbed me, Regan, was this question, uh, asked of Illinois 8th graders. Is there an adult you know, other than your parent, you could talk to about important things in your life? And, I don't like that wet. You should be able to talk to, a parent. I don't know if that question is necessarily a good one to be asked 8th graders, right?
Right. Well, and, our schools are trying, I agree with you, in a lot of situations to drive that wedge between parents. I mean, we're hiding things from parents. We have legislation that's not requiring schools to communicate with parents. I mean, for example, if your child wants to, you know, identify as the opposite sex, then they can ask for their names or nicknames to be changed, their pronouns to be changed, and schools aren't required to alert parents. I mean, I understand home life can be challenging. However, at the end of the day, that parent-child relationship is at the heart of the matter. And I have really big concerns. Now, I am thankful that the survey is not mandatory. However, most of the time it's just put forth, and people don't realize you have to opt out or opt in. It's kind of a very vague language situation. So, I have done everything I can in my power as a parent to share with fellow parents, to talk about at the school board. I asked my superintendent if this was something that our schools in particular had seen or intended to implement, to which he said no, which is good. But, we have to start paying attention and we have to be engaged. I mean, I think about things that I have missed in my own school or classroom, but I read my daughter's emails. I go to parent teacher conferences and I'm watching what's happening. But not every parent has that opportunity. We're families that are working, we're, trying to keep food on the table, we're getting homework done, we're working 3rd shift, all the things, and so, this health survey just feels like one more encroachment, and, I am always advocating for parents to ask the hard questions, make sure you're showing up, and asking my superintendent or asking the principals, I just felt like we needed to leave that line of communication open.
Mhm. And, another thing that concerns me about this program, the Illinois Youth Survey, is that they work with the University of Illinois on this, and really, I mean, that the people at this research team or a part of this research team at the University of Illinois, they weren't elected by anybody to come up with this survey. They're doing it as a school project, and it's being recommended. It's enshrined in law. And it feels odd that we would implement a youth survey with the University of Illinois.
Well, and some
That's
of the parents are concerned about where is this data going? What is this data gonna be used for? I mean, we do have a lot of COVID dollars that have been pumped into schools for various programming, and I feel like mental health, is one avenue that's gonna kind of allow the government to continue to overreach and continue to invade into, public, schools, but yet private lives and private information. So, you know, my children will be opting out. I will be putting a document in their student files. I actually already have one on file that, eliminates them from conversations around, sexual identity and gender issues that I just don't think are appropriate for them. If it's a conversation I want to have with them at home, I will.
mm,
But, you know, there's things happening every day in our school buildings that we have no idea about. And so, you know, government overreach doesn't need to be continued and fostered, and especially funded now.
mhm,
When we're saying, "Oh, maybe this mental health piece is kind of the next buzzword and buzz funding source." And I think more families have to stand up. I mean, before joining my local school board, I sued my local school board over the mask mandate. I felt like that was a government overreach. It was invading on my family's health, kind of preferences. At the end of the day, a mask is a medical device. And so it took almost 800 families to stand up together and say no. And that was a tremendous win. It was affected statewide, schools statewide, because finally the governor dropped and, the State Board of Ed dropped their mandate and their requirement kind of just went away. Oh,
mhm.
we didn't really mean for it to be, mandatory. Well, yes.
Oh, yes, you did.
Oh, yes, you did.
Yes.
So, I just think
I got kicked out of a restaurant for wearing a mask. I said, "No, I'm not gonna do it," and they said, "We're gonna call the cops on you." I said, "Do it." And they came and kicked me out. So there you have it. Like, when they say, "Oh, no, we didn't actually ban masks," yes, you did.
yeah. I mean, and that's the thing, when you get non-compliance, that's the only way to move forward. And I think, we even heard this past fall is coming back to school. I think it started with, like, the FFA, and TSA was gonna start requiring masks again in airports. And I'm sure you probably read on all the information, the buzz was, "Oh, hell no. We're not going back to that."
Yeah,
And so that's what I mean about mass non-compliance. I mean, the government is only as powerful as the people will let them be.
yeah, yeah. If all these parents we've been talking about this, youth survey that they turn around and, where the data's going, if all these parents turned in opt-out forms, the program wouldn't,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
And just really stick it to them. So,
Well,
uh,
you've gotta communicate with your principals. I mean, I asked, when I joined the school board about our survey policy, and there's a difference between voluntary surveys and mandatory surveys, but, one of the ones that I didn't like previously, I said, "Can I just ask that parents are alerted, in a weekly newsletter, that your child will be getting this survey and that it's voluntary?" And they said, "Yes." I mean,
yeah,
why not? We're not saying the students can't choose to do the survey. We're not saying that the data might not be useful, but if we can, again, just continue that open line of communication, I think it's gonna be so helpful for parents and, sort of insisting their schools focus on the basics.
yeah.
I'd really like reading, writing, math scores to go up. I mean, even in my district, we're looking at reading and math scores that are hovering around 50%. I mean, that's not acceptable to me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Around 50%, well, that's kinda high.
Well, to your point, yes, it is. It's much higher than the state average, but, you know, I don't want 1 out of 2 kids to be lucky enough to know how to read at grade level.
Yeah. Well, and it's even I mean, it's terrible. I mean, we could go in and look at all what was it, 53 kids don't know how to do
0%. Yeah,
0 0 kids and 53 elementary schools don't know how to read at
yeah,
grade level.
yeah, yeah.
It's absurd. We do have to take a quick break, but
Okay.
you're listening to the Morning Buzz on Cities 92.9. We're gonna be back with Regan Deering. She's running as a state house or she's running, for the State House District 88. So she's gonna be on your ballot, folks. Mark it up. Mark up that ballot. I'm back next. Good morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. I so do appreciate you all tuning in on the live stream. That's Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Rumble. Head on over there and give it a smash. Give the video um, a like. And Regan Deering is here to chat a little bit. So real quick, you're telling me how you feel a little bit disenfranchised about voting in the state of Illinois. So tell me a little bit about that. Uh, why does voting matter? Obviously, early voting started, was it yesterday?
Mhm.
Yesterday. Checking my watch that I don't have, right?
Our
Started,
best
yeah, yesterday. And so tell me about what you're hearing from voters where they don't want to vote.
Well, first of all, we're in primary election season, which already has a lower turnout than general. People are fired up about the general election. They feel like that's when their true choice happens. But in a race like mine, it will be decided in the primary between the 2 Republicans that are on the ballot. There isn't a Democrat on the ballot as we sit here today. So, I am trying to encourage people to get out and vote in the primary. But, I try and be a good example of how, government is supposed to be run. I mean, we have career politicians in Illinois. We have corruption. And what we need is sort of that next generation of people getting off the sidelines and getting into politics. And we need new leadership to be able to concentrate our message and take it to the and that's where I came from. I was an educator. I was a small business owner, working in my community to help low-income families, and I think our system is broken. So what are you gonna do about it? We can't just complain about it. We can't, throw up our arms about it and sit back. We have to be engaged, and this country was founded on that right to vote and that ability to vote, and so that's what I try and press on people is it does matter, and I know it's frustrating in Illinois where we have one-party rule, and we have had for a long time. You know, a wise man once said, "What do you have to lose by taking a chance, on the other party?" And I think that we have seen what is possible. Under Donald Trump's presidency, we had, you know, a booming economy, we had jobs, for all categories of people that wanted to work. We had a secure border and tax relief for everyone, not just the wealthy, although it's portrayed that way. Tax relief for everyone. And so it does matter who you put into office and who you can give a chance to get to work for you. And so I think that when I talk to people at the doors and they say, "Oh, it just doesn't matter." I say, "Well, what does matter to you? You know, Are you worried about your grandkids in public schools? Do you own your own business and you were shut down in COVID and you're, trying to claw your way back? Are you concerned about your tax dollars, being paid for non-citizens that are showing up here in our small towns? You know, if those things matter to you, then your responsibility is to vote. You know, there's not a huge selection on the ballot. It takes you more time to probably get to the polling location than to actually vote and turn around and go home. But I'd ask them for that commitment. I'm here today. I'm out knocking doors in 40 mile an hour winds, and I'm showing up, and I'm, leaving life behind to be able to show you and tell you that I have your same concerns, and I will go to Springfield, and I will fight tooth and nail to get those, good policies across the finish line. But if you don't vote us in, we don't have a chance.
Yeah, yep. And I think that here in the state of Illinois, it's just been this, progressive, like, oh, my vote doesn't matter, my vote doesn't matter. And this is how um, Democrats I mean, you gotta take your hat off to the Democrats because they get out the vote. They really do, and it's been years and years of them getting out the vote and you sitting on the sideline saying, "My vote doesn't
Mhm.
matter."
And you need to talk to your neighbors, you need to talk to your friends to think that we can apply those same principles. We can use the grassroots effort. We can get out in our precincts and talk about who's on your ballot, why it matters, and kind of get that face-to-face interaction. I mean, we do have to start using some of the same strategies. I know that the Republican Party has got a Bank Your Vote initiative going on where they're trying to ask people to, request a mail-in ballot, go and vote early. The bottom line is we just need the votes. I get it. We were at a town hall in Farmer City earlier this week, and I said, "By a show of hands, how many of you go and vote on election day?" All but 2 people. raise their hands. So I get that conservatives, we want one-day voting. We want voter ID. We want free and fair and secure elections. I mean, we all want that. But what does that look like really? We were talking offline about mail-in ballots or drop boxes or all the things that have come to be. I mean, we have voting season now. We don't just have voting day.
Well,
And
and that's especially thanks to Democrats and, some Republicans who have implemented these things. I mean,
for sure.
today, if Governor J.B. Pritzker, wanted to with a swipe of the pen, he could say, "No, we're not gonna do mail-in ballots here in the state of Illinois," or, "No, we're not gonna do drop boxes here in the state of
Instead,
Illinois."
they're going the opposite way.
Yeah.
I mean, Illinois is trying to become the first state in the nation to just universally mail ballots to voters. I mean,
Wow.
we've come so
So
far
just
from
do it. You don't
absentee
request
for
one.
yeah, no, you don't even have to request one.
Yeah,
That's
it
their
just
goal.
comes to your house.
Yeah, comes to your door. I mean, we're bringing new voters into our state. We're about to give illegals, non-citizens voting rights, and it starts small. Oh, it's in your school board election. Oh, it's in your municipal
Well,
election, and then creep, creep, creep. And I think and pray that people are starting to wake up and starting to pay attention. But as a future legislator, I intend to be a good governance, you know, advocate because we are giving power to this governor. And it does stem from one party rule. I
mhm,
mean, they don't even need our votes. They were in session, earlier this week. They have enough votes to literally put a bill on the floor and pass it just right then and there.
mhm. Yeah, so
So we're not even listening to each other. We're not balancing ideas. We're passing things in the middle of the night. We're not controlling what the legislature is supposed to control. We're supposed to be in control of the purse strings. You know,
the
what did we
people,
do?
we the
We gave
people.
fungible 4% dollars to the governor, so now it's 8, and we've seen what he does
Yeah,
with
yeah,
money. I
yeah.
mean, he just thinks we can print more and we can spend it however, and
Jer
poof,
what are
we
they? The
balance the
Jerry
budget.
Springer or Jerry Springer checks. He's like, "Oh, I got this check for you and this check for you." We do have to take a quick break.
You
You're
have to
listening to The Morning Buzz. We'll wrap up the show next. This is Cities 92.9. morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. We've only got a couple of minutes left, but I do wanna talk with Regan about, why are you better than your opponent? Tell me.
Oh, well,
That's Chuck Erickson.
yes. So we have 2 Republicans on the ballot, and I think really, it boils down to what's our vision for the party. You know, I chose to run for this seat because I know that I'm concerned about the state of Illinois. I've got 3 great teenagers that I want to raise here, you know, and have them come back and be part of a small town that we enjoy living amongst family members with. I always tease people, they say, "Oh, you're from Decatur." Well, I'm not sorry. We've created a beautiful life there. It's a wonderful small town, and there are a lot of those wonderful small towns throughout Illinois, and we need to start celebrating that. So when I think about why I chose to run, it's that we need to give a voice to conservative values in the capital. Democrats seem hell-bent on pushing their narratives, pushing their ideology right through policy and right through legislation. And I hope to, be a strong voice for conservative values in the Capitol and getting work done. And we need to build coalitions. We're in the super minority. We can't just go and dig our heels in and scream at one another and try and, affect change that way. We've got to have good messages, good messengers. We've got to be able to get to the heart of the matter for our citizens.
Now, tell me real quick, and we gotta go in about a minute. Did you approach the Republican establishment about your run? And, um, do you feel that the Republican establishment did not want you to run in this particular district?
Well, I'll tell you what I did do when, I knew that Representative Calkins was retiring and that this was gonna be an open seat, and I live in the 88th district. I thought it was a great opportunity to continue to advocate for families and businesses, and so I did have a conversation with, the majority leader and said, "What are you looking for in your representatives? What's your vision for the Republican Party? How are we gonna focus on getting out of the super minority, and are my issues welcome here, if you will?" And so I think that I didn't need to get permission, you know?
Mhm.
I mean, this is a free country. This is a free state. If you feel like you've got qualifications, you've got the lived experiences, and you've got the passion to do it, here
He
I
didn't
am.
did he give you permission?
Well, it's a she.
She
They're McCombie.
Oh, McCombie, yep.
Yes, and, I really wasn't asking for permission, but I liked what she had to say back. We're looking for young, passionate women even, we'd love to grow the women majority in our caucus, and so, we had a great conversation, and here I am. I think that they're not getting involved in primaries for the most part, and so that's probably the thing.
Mhm.
I don't think our party needs to pick winners and losers. Anyone should be able to put their name on the ballot, and it's our responsibility to go out and tell the voters why we're a better choice. So that's what I've been doing. But I do wanna say before we go, we're having an event here in Bloomington, and,
Woohoo!
it's a district dinner, and it's going to be on Monday, February 19th. We're getting together from 6 to 8 at the VFW, hall in Bloomington on Lincoln Street, and it's just an opportunity for people to come and get to know me and for me to get to know them and what their priorities are, what's working really well for you and maybe what's a challenge for you. And, so often, it's what you get in your mailbox or what you hear in a commercial ad and I really want people to know me. I've been put into quite a few boxes in this race, and, I don't feel it's a true reflection of who I am and who I wanna be as a citizen legislator, so if people wanna come and join us at no cost, to them on, um, on that Monday, we would
I
so
love it.
you
Awesome.
can, RSVP at reganforillinois.com and, secure yourself a spot. Bring a spouse, bring a friend, bring a colleague, and let's make sure that McLean County doesn't become the next Cook County.
Yeah, because we're close. Uh, we're 10-10 split on the McLean County board, and Bloomington Normal, our council, as live as can be. So,
Mhm.
you guys have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye. I love you. Have a great weekend, and be sure to show some love in the comment section if you're watching on the stream for Regan Deering coming in, this morning, and thank